Now that you know how to play Munchkin, we're going to take a look at it in our point-counterpoint review, now with more counterpoints.
Because Mike and I disagree about Munchkin, I'm going to argue for the game.
And I'm going to tell you why it barely even qualifies as a game, Tom.
That's funny. Almost as funny as this game. This game is about funny. The theme is funny. It's a parody game. It's let's be Munchkins, let's explore a dungeon, but it's all parody of a role-playing game, if you will. And the theme of that, the everything about the game fits into that theme. So not only do you have like evocative monsters like the gazebo, everybody knows the gazebo, but you have silly stuff like the potted plant and the floating nose.
Because the gazebo is very serious.
Yeah, well, every time I encounter a gazebo in D&D, I run the other way. I don't know about you.
Wise words.
But then you also have the fun action cards, out to lunch and cheat and things like that. It's all fun. The rules are fun. The rules not only poke fun at the person reading them, but the game itself, the art. It's all like, it's a singing and dancing sword, not just a dancing sword. There you go. Everything about the game is fun and funny. So tell me, why isn't it a game?
Well, you're half right, Tom. Everything about the game is funny, but certainly not fun. There is no depth of gameplay to Munchkin. I mean, it's as shallow as a very shallow thing, Tom. It's just very shallow.
Kiddie pool. Shallow as a kiddie pool?
Shallow, let's go with that. Shallow as a kiddie pool. There's just nothing to it. It's what I like to call a flip and laugh game, where you're simply flipping over cards, saying, "Oh, that's so funny looking. Aren't we having a good time with these cards that are so funny?" And there's just nothing to it. There's no decision making. There's the bare minimum amount of strategy and tactics in this game. It's practically nil. And even if you're into it, even if you find the game somehow stimulating, even if you really enjoy the flipping the cards and you really are into the art and you do, find the gazebo hilarious, even if it does it for you, there are 50 expansions for a reason, Tom. There has practically no replay value. Once you see the floating nose once, unless you have some sort of issue, you're not going to find it funny every time. It just isn't going to hold up to repeated plays. It doesn't even hold up to one play for me.
Well, it's harsh. It's a little harsh to say that. Because, yeah, it is a flip and laugh game, but really that's kind of the point. You're flipping over cards, you're assembling your character, and the point about the laughter is that you're kind of making fun of each other at the table, and yourself at the same time. It's easy fun. It's the insults, if you will, the backstabbing, the jibing. They all come together, and they do it almost effortlessly. The game does that part for you and allows you to just, sit back, let the game be the reason that you guys are sort of insulting each other. Take that, giving you the take that, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. You can play it mindlessly and let it wash over you, and that's fine. But it's not a game that's inherently social. I think it's a game that's trying to sort of stimulate conversation at the table. It's trying to make, have you interacting with your friends and joking and laughing. But nothing in the game really does that. With the game, you're kind of experiencing it. You're seeing the cards. You're laughing at them. But it doesn't actually make you. The game does not drive the conversation. So for a good social game like I, Dark Overlord, Wise and Otherwise, party games like Catchphrase, Gloom, Gloom is a similar kind of game where it's predominantly luck, but with Gloom you explicitly have to tell a story. With I, Dark Overlord, the whole game is storytelling. It's giving excuses to the Overlord to try to get out of the punishment. And those games, the cards directly drive the story. If you have a potted plant card in Dark Overlord, you have to work it into your excuse. You have to say, I tripped over a potted plant, or a potted plant, there's an emergency potted plant delivery, and you have to really ham it up, and you have to play the game in a way that is social and that is going to be entertaining for everybody. With this, things are just happening, and I am party to them.
Well, I think Steve Jackson would argue that you're going to get out of this game what you put into it. That's maybe the point of Munchkin, is that you need to bring your own socialist to the table, because we're here just munchkining it up. We're just worried about assembling the best character we can. But the point is relevant, that it does have pretty limited replay value, that it's not a core social game, that, you know, these things are relevant. And you're right, there's a reason that there's 50 expansions. But boy, there's 50 expansions. Like you said it all, if you like this game at all, you're going to get tired of seeing the gazebo and the floating nose. But you can always buy whatever else comes down the line. The
Space Munchkin, Zombie Munchkin.
Yeah.
Munchkins are us. That's something that's everyone, but
Not yet.
it could be.
It's in development.
Rubber Duck Munchkin. There's just so many different ones. Yes, I agree with that.
So I think the point of the game is that you get out of it what you bring into it, and you can't say that it's not completely social, because it does have a little element of, in the rules it says you need to argue about this point, and some of the cards say feel free to argue about this point. So there you go.
Sure, and while I really like Steve Jackson, and I think that his company does a lot to kind of further gaming and to get people into it, they have the great website where you can promote your local convention. So I have no problem with the company in that way, but the games just don't do it for me. You mentioned the arguing thing. You know, I find it a little bit, honestly, a little bit offensive in this game that the rulebook explicitly, in several places, you know, pushes you to argue about the rules. Now, there are very few rules in this game. It's very fast and loose. The rules are intentionally left open-ended.
Right.
And then it kind of pokes fun at the reader of the rulebook, saying, oh, you know, you're a munchkin, so you must like arguing about rules, right? That's fun for you. Well, I'm a pretty serious gamer. I like to win. I like to play hard. When a rules debate comes up, I will certainly hash it out, but I don't look for rules arguments. And I was a little bit honestly offended when I read that in the rulebook and when that came up at the table, because it's not like when I'm playing a game that I'm heavily invested in, like, say, Thunderstone. If there's something that's a little bit confusing, like a hero dying when they have 0 strength in the old version, not in the new version, that's going to be something that needs to be resolved. And it needs to be resolved at the time, but I'm not looking for that kind of ambiguity, and I'm not looking for that argument. I'm just invested in the game, and I want to resolve it fairly. With this, it's nonsense to say that you should have rule arguments, because there are practically no rules. And I feel like that's kind of, in some ways, a cruel parody and kind of a harsh parody of Munchkinism.
I suppose it could hit a little close to home, especially if you're a serious gamer. But I have to say that I think that's kind of the point, that we're poking fun at everything about the role-playing Munchkin genre. So I'm going to have to give it a moderately high rating. It's not my favorite kind of game, but it is a highly social game, despite the fact that it doesn't inherently possess social attributes. But I do enjoy it. It is a good excuse to get together with your friends, and if you want to play a good game, great. Otherwise, just throw some cards on the table. It's the same thing.
I couldn't have said that last part better myself. If you want to play a game, play one. If you want to throw cards on the table, you have Munchkin.
I give it a 5 out of 10.
You did. You give it 2 5s out of 10, but I'm assuming those out of 10. But I will give it a 1 out of 10. This is my least favorite game on the list. This is probably the only game we'll look at this season that I do not own in my collection. This one does not work for me. Like I said, it's a flip and laugh game. This game is happening, and I'm sometimes present for it, but I don't feel like I'm playing it. It has no engaging decision making. The cards are funny only the first time. I'm not pulled into a storytelling experience or a social experience. If I'm playing with other funny people, maybe we can entertain each other, but that would have nothing to do with the game. We could do that while doing any activity, and the game certainly doesn't get the credit for it. Other games that are more social, they kind of force us to be funny. They trigger funny moments. Those I enjoy. Munchkin falls completely flat for me.
Your rating?
1 out of 10.
There you have it. Get ready for the breakdown. This is the breakdown of Munchkin from Steve Jackson Games. Your game time will vary wildly. You can have lots of players, but someone can get lucky and it'll end quickly. But otherwise, it can take a long time. So we give it 50 short and 50 long. Individual turns are short, but you are often playing cards on other players' turns, so we give it 10 slow and 90 fast. Both the door and treasure decks are completely random, so we give it 95 luck, but there is some skill involved in timing your card plays, so we give it 5 skill. Because Munchkin has so little skill, it's hard to give it a strategy and tactics rating, but each turn you are trying to maximize your points so you can level up. There's some strategy in trading your cards, so we give it 95 tactics and 5 strategy. Your main concern is leveling up your character. But most of the game is filled with helping or messing with the other players, so we give it 20 independence and 80 interaction. Both the decks feature lots of fun things like goofy dungeon denizens and backstabbing, so we give it 95 immersion. We give it 5 abstraction because it's hard to get past the constant point grabbing. We give it 75 simplicity. It's easy to learn. You don't have to have much invested in it to play it. But we give it 25 complexity because it does have some Munchkin-y rules, and because of the overall free-form nature of the game might be off-putting to hardcore gamers. We give it 85 portability and 15 grandeur. The basic game is really just 2 decks and a rulebook and a box, but there is a deluxe edition you can get a level up board from if you like. We give it 100 expandability. The charm of this game is the novelty of discovering the floating nose and building a super Munchkin for the first time, but you'll need new content to hold on to that feeling. For originality, we give it 5 trophies. It's basically a flip and laugh game, and it's really the first of its kind. Games like Killer Bunny probably wouldn't exist without it. For value, we give it 3 trophies. The components are good, it's inexpensive. It'd get a higher rating if it included a level up tracker. Mike gives it 1 out of 10, Tom gives it 5 out of 10, and that is the breakdown of Munchkin.